Hi everyone. So today we have Eric. So can you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, Eric?
Yeah, hi. So attended Interlake High School, class of 2022, and then here I am now at Berkeley studying EECS, which is electrical engineering and computer science. In the long term, probably leaning more electrical engineering than computer science, just a little bit of history. In high school, I tried to diversify my extracurriculars a little bit. So one of my biggest ones was robotics. So that's kind of how electrical engineering came to be. Along with that, I did a lot of community service. I did some student government and stuff like that.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into ECS? Like where did that passion and interest really start and where did you really get that from?
That's really good. Um, so I assume the audience is mostly people who are about to apply or eventually going to apply. And then the UC application usually asks for 4 essays. I think each of them kind of touches upon an aspect that kind of forces you to like express your passion and why you want to do what you want, right? So for again, robotics is a really big part of my drive towards coming into engineering. Um, that was kind of like where most of my time was spent throughout high school. I started my own business in the world of competitive robotics. So I design my own products and I sort of sell them to the community. And then I filed for a patent for one of my products as well. And so like throughout that experience of like learning the whole entire engineering process, right, to see, oh, I can do something myself, come up with an idea, see through it, and be able to market it and help the whole community. I think that was like a really key um, key moment for me to be like, wow, engineering is really cool. Really, since a really young age, at the age of 3, I think was when I got my first Lego set, and then I also got into Transformers and stuff like that. And then like even back then, I think that really was a trigger also to see, hey, I can have all these colorful pieces, put them together, and make something that's mine, right? And I think like engineering is such a cool thing because of that, because like you're genuinely putting your imagination, your creativity into something else, and then that something else can eventually impact the community, society, the whole world, and whatever else.
I see. That's pretty cool. So can you tell us a little bit more about that product you made for robotics? I'm pretty curious about what it is.
Yeah. On at face value, it's nothing super cool. It's like just like a tailored drawer slide for competitive robotics. So like at any like desk you have a drawer, right? And then that slides on 2 slides. In robotics, we use a lot of these drawer slides to extend our robot really, really far, really, really fast. It's pretty efficient, and in most years' challenges, it's really like viable and really helpful. But for the most part, we usually use drawer slides that are from just on the market. So like go to Home Depot or something. There's some other ones from like medical cabinet usage or whatnot, but not they're not really well made for robotics, right? And a lot of the challenges you have, precision is important, speed, accuracy, maintenance, all of that are factors that you need to consider because your season's only so long, and then you want to have the best of the best. So kind of going into that, it was my goal to like make something that's like the best short slide you can have for competitive robotics. So I made some changes to it in making it more ideal for that environment.
I see. That's pretty cool. So what really in making that, what really was your consideration? What kind of skills did you really need to use to design that new product?
Yeah, I think going into it really was just that was my way of really seeing through the entire engineering process, right? And again, relating that to your first question, that's kind of what inspired me to fall in love with this whole process because it's like such a fascinating thing, right? So first of all, you need to like know what the problem is. That came about back in sophomore year. Our challenge was to stack oversized Lego bricks on top of each other. And then I remember in like one of our earliest competitions, we stacked like 9 of them, and that was like a pretty outstanding achievement in terms of like of the world standard. I think that was like one of the first 9 stacks in the world, right? And then on our 10th block, we were about to like place it on top, and then like because of the tolerances in the slides, like it knocked the whole thing down, and then we like lost all the points. That was kind of like the inciting incident, right? It's like, wow, this is not as good as it can be. And then after that, it's just a lot of prototyping. So I took some of the slides that we already were using from the market and said, hey, how can I make this better? So I did some modifications with those, drew a lot of sketches. After like you have paper sketches, then you transfer it into like 3D renders through like CAD, computer aided design. And then you prototype again. And then I was like, might as well just see through it to the end and like really get a hold of the whole process. Reach out to manufacturers, like sign contracts to get stuff produced and shipped, like get prototypes from them, and then actually say, hey, this is good, this is what I want, and then eventually commercialize that. And then on a whole like side note is like the whole patent process, right? Like how do you research if like there's any similar patents out there that conflict with what you were trying to achieve, or how do you write a patent, right? Like writing a patent, I don't know if you're familiar with it, is a whole different experience because it's not like normal English. It hurts your head so much when you read a patent. And then after that is like going through the rest of the application process, and then how long and what you have to do to actually get the certificate and all of that. I don't know. The whole thing was just kind of like a passion project learning experience for me to like set me up for engineering in the future.
And since you're doing ECS right now, how do those skills kind of translate to what you're doing in your university?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will say right now, robotics doesn't relate too much because I'm still stuck in like the intro, the prereq courses for EECS. So we're doing like a Python class to understand like computer structures and then like why programming works. And then we're doing like a basic uh, electrical engineering class, which are all about like linear algebra, imaging, and like circuits and stuff like that. So like there isn't a whole lot of translation here just yet. Going on into like sophomore year and beyond, when I actually start doing like major like robotics courses or something like that, then that's when things will start to be more applicable. But I do want to kind of relate my high school experience to this a little. I think when I went to Interlake, I went through IB. But one of the biggest things I got from alumni was like they would come back and thank all of our teachers, be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did IB because like all of the IAs we write, all of the papers we write, really prepared us for writing research papers in XYZ subject in the college." And I think that's something that I also personally really realized. Also, I think because of the whole IB curriculum, there's just so much there that really prepares you for college. Like I haven't really struggled with any of the papers I've had to write here because we've had so much extensive practice through IB as a program. And I think for all of those people, including myself back in IB, when you're stressed out and like, oh my gosh, this seems so meaningless, it seems terrible. I think in the end it was pretty worth it.
I see. Now, coming out after you graduated from Interlake, what was your application process like, and how is your what really kind of set you apart in terms of college applications, and what really got you into your university?
Honestly, honestly speaking, I don't know. I don't think anyone really knows because college applications is like so up in the air at this point. The whole holistic ideal, and it's like you don't really know what's happening anymore. Um, I did do a lot of community service, I think, and student government because I'm really passionate about those things. And I don't know, just like fitting demographics wise, like you want to do what you enjoy, right? And make sure you're really concentrated on what you enjoy. And then when you really spend the time in it, you really can express your emotions and how you learn and how your experiences in your essays. I think really one of which, one half of it is just having the source material, which is really just finding what you're passionate in and doing it. But another half of it is really just being able to convey how you feel, convey how you learn through writing. So that's also another skill in some way. It's just like how do you put it on paper and how do you make it convincing? How do you make it compelling? I was told that most of my essays are pretty strong in that department. Throughout high school, I ended up editing like 70 other essays for people also because apparently people trust me with that. I also really enjoy writing essays in some way, shape, or form. And whenever people want to ask me for help, I'm really happy with that. So in the future, if people want to contact me, that's also on the table. But I don't know. When I write, I usually find a really creative and unique way to deliver a story. Like one of my essays was like completely in uh, the whole thing was like an analogy about a pen, And I don't know, I thought it was really fun. Some other people agreed with me, but it's just like all about having the source material and being able to convey it in a way that's unique, compelling, but also really shows that you are invested and interested in what you're doing.
I see. So, like the essays, showing your passion, you say, is like kind of what set you apart, you think?
Yeah, it's
I
kind of a
see.
generic answer, but honestly, beyond that, I don't really have much because I don't really know how things happen. Yeah.
Right. Now, so since you did the IB program in Interlake, I'm sure you did the internship in your senior year. So how was the internship process and how is it like to get an internship as a high school student? And what kind of tips would you give for students who are interested in getting internships at the high school level?
Gotcha. I think that's also a very complicated question to answer. At face value, I think having a high school internship is pretty unique. It's pretty cool. You feel like you're actually being able to do something, right? I think a lot of my friends had a lot of impact in what they're doing. One of which I think is really funny because after he finished that year there, he was like one of the most senior work employees at this startup company, right? Like that's like his transgression, but yeah, it's like a really cool experience that you don't really have like anywhere else, right? Which I think is really meaningful. Um, that said, Interlake's internship program is also pretty well developed, such that like a lot of the local companies definitely know about it. So I think that's also really helpful, so that when you reach out, then a lot of times they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, we're willing to like give you a shot," and you interview. If you get in, you get the job, and I think that's really cool. Especially like UW, a lot of the startups there in the incubator, that's a great place to start. But really, again, I don't really have a perfect answer for this. A lot of it just becomes cold emailing or reach out to connections that you may have, and just really try through that domain. So my internship is actually kind of unique. I didn't really end up at a company. I worked with a professor and his department at UW in developing a course, a summer course for just like teaching younger students about like the cutting edge technology and autonomous vehicles and like transportation technology. So that's kind of what I did. A little bit of engineering component. We did a little like Lego engineering module within that, but also just more so instruction and teaching and the aspect. I think that combined together is that was pretty ideal for me because that's kind of like what I enjoy, right? Helping people and whatnot, along with engineering. But plenty of my friends found like startups. They went into various like organizations, companies, and worked there. And I think they all had a really good time. So like, there's just so many opportunities on the table, especially with like COVID happening now. There's remote opportunities, and now you don't have to really stay in Washington either. I have people who were working in a company in DC, and then people who are working in a company in Europe, and this and that. And there's like so many opportunities on the table, and Interlake really gives you a good environment to experience what you want.
I see. That's pretty amazing. I mean, getting an internship at the high school level is a really valuable experience. I mean, getting
Mm-hmm.
to work with UW professors pretty great as the high school student. So between, having the IB program, I mean, that's a lot of work in of itself, as well as like excelling academically and having a lot of, as you said, you had robotics and a lot of extracurriculars. So how did you really manage your time and balance like the school life as well as your own personal life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the age-old question, right? It's always about time management. Going to someone like Interlake is like such a blessing because there's so many opportunities on hand for you, right? You can do anything you possibly could imagine, and there's probably a program there for you that actually has a good reputation also that you can do well in, right? So really, again, kind of circling back is just like really finding where your passions are. I think a lot of people come into high school and whatnot, thinking, hey, I need to have like 20 items on my resume because that's what's going to get me into college. Sure, that might like look decent, right? But like in the grand scheme of things, it's really going to be like quality over quantity, right? How much passion and how much time and effort you put into something really is conveyed through how your essays are written. So the first things that usually go are the ones that you realize aren't the most interesting ones to you, right? I'm not a fan of people who are in like 6 clubs and they never show up to those clubs, but they're on their resume, right? That's not meaningful to anyone. If you have like 3 activities that are really big and you spend all of your time there, I think that's more meaningful than anything, right? So I think first of all, really decide on what you really enjoy and then zone in onto those. Second, I always hate to answer this question with this way, but I think based on how like school is nowadays, the second thing that usually goes is sleep. You end up like staying up later or you wake up earlier to get things done. I don't recommend it, but like there's always situations where like that's what has to happen, unfortunately. So like kind of balance yourself, right? Definitely self health, your personal health is an important factor, but sometimes you have a deadline and you gotta like finish that way, right? And then I think lastly, what my biggest thing is like, don't be scared to reach out to people for help, right? Again, the community at Interlake is amazing. Everyone's super supportive. Everyone's there to help you. Your peers are a great resource. If you're running behind on something, maybe you can work with them on it, right? Be like, hey, do you think you can meet with me this from 7:30 to 8, and then they can hold you accountable to get something done, because otherwise you're going to get distracted or whatever, right? Or if you have an assignment that's really like uh you just simply can't get it done, there's no harm in like emailing your teacher saying, hey, whatever reason, can I maybe get an extra day on this? I don't think, for the most part, I think most teachers will give you an extension for it. So there's always that department. And then just like reach out for others for help, because there's I know some people in high school who ended up just like killing themselves every day trying to figure out like why I don't understand something. They'll like lose their sleep, spend hours on a single math problem to like end up maybe learning it, maybe giving up, right? But it doesn't really make sense in the grand scheme of things either, when you know there's like 10, 20 people in the class that might know how to do this question. You can save so much time just by asking them for help, and maybe you know how to do this other class's homework, and then you can help them with that, right? Everyone's in it together. You're building this community, you're helping each other out. So really part of your responsibility in my eyes is also being willing to ask other people for help.
I see. Yeah. I mean, for sure, it's really important to balance your time. And yeah, for me, from my experience in Interlake, everyone, the teachers and the peers are really accommodating. So it's not not to be afraid to reach out for help. To kind of like, I mean, change pace a little bit and talk more on like electrical engineering, computer science. What kind of for students who are interested in getting into this field, what kind of high school level classes, so it could be IBs, APs, or something else, would you recommend them take to prepare themselves for going into electrical engineering or computer science?
Another good question. Um, I don't think there's a right answer for this one either. First of all, there's only so much like that's offered to you for these things. So it there's no good answer for it, right? I think looking at like a lot of my peers in the program, there's some people who come in with years of experience. Like they can like sleep through every single class and do really well in the class. But there's also some people who have like very minimal experience with that what's going on, and then they're here really putting in the time, putting in the effort, and working really hard. But at the end of the day, they're also doing well in the class, right? So it doesn't really matter too much where you start. Obviously, if you have some experience, you get a better start than everyone else. So you might have to work a little less. But at the end of the day, there's no like, hey, you need this or you can't succeed, right? Regarding recommendations, I think like these are such loose recommendations. I think most people do APCS, which is a Java-based class, which might help a little bit with one of our intro to programming classes that you have to do for prereq. And then if you do a little bit of Python, then it helps with your first prereq also. But they also don't help you that much because Berkeley does it in a completely different way for you. Like they really want to teach you the fundamentals. Um, Math is really good, right? If you can waive, because for us, Calc 1, Calc 2 are like some of the hardest classes ever. So you can like do Calc in high school and then you can immediately get into like multivariable calc, then you're also better set that way. But again, really, no matter what classes you end up taking, you're not going to like be in a bad spot necessarily here. And I think that's mostly forwardable to like anywhere else, right? It's like you can get a lot of credits for whatever classes you do. So just choose what you're interested in. Try to like choose classes you're like going to be decently good at also, and learn from them. Hopefully not like fail the class, right? Get like a decent grade in it, and then yeah, I think that's what's more important in the grand scheme of things also.
I see. And how's your experience at Berkeley been so far? How'd you like it?
I think overall it's really nice. The community is great. The campus is amazing. I live on a hill though, so I walk a long time to get home every day. Lately the weather's been pretty crazy. I don't know what's up with that. But beyond that, yeah, I'm having a great time. People here are really fun.
What was like the biggest kind of shock or change for you coming from high school to college?
That's a good one because I thought about this a lot, and really, I don't know if I have a really good answer. Whenever my friends check in on me and say, "Hey, how's college? How's Cal going for you?" I think my initial response is like, it just feels like the subscription version of high school. It's like Interlake is already like this way, right? And coming to Cal is just like expanded upon this like core value. I think I love Interlake because everyone around you is successful. Everyone there is challenging you, right? No matter who you're friends with, pretty much, they're going to be better at you at something, and you can learn from them in some way, right? If you're the best of the best, you're not really learning because there's nothing to improve to, right? Interlake is like that. Once you come to Cal, you'll see that even in a new scale, in a larger scale, and not just Cal. I think a lot of the colleges, or like any college, really is there's going to be a lot of people there that will challenge you, right? Everyone around you is really successful. Sometimes they're too successful and it's a little intimidating, but that's just how things are. The faculty here is just like bewildering. I like LinkedIn all of my professors before I had their classes, and it's just like I'm completely speechless about it. But yeah, maybe that's kind of the thing. Is like I expected college to be really, really different than high school, but coming here, I kind of realized that it's like pretty similar to how it was. And maybe that's a testament to how well Interlake prepares you for college. Maybe that's a testament to Interlake not being enough like high school. I don't know, but like kind of depends on how you see it. But my time in college has been pretty similar to how Interlake was, and for that, I think that's pretty nice.
That's pretty interesting. So it's not too big of a leap, but I guess it also depends on your personal experiences too.
Yeah, I think like
So yeah,
for most people, the biggest thing, sorry, is
yeah, no problem.
you're alone now. You're independent. Like I can't really go home on a weekend. Um, so like I am kind of here myself, right? But I still talk to my parents pretty much every day. We catch up. I'm still spending a lot of my time on academics and what else. So like as much as it is different, it's also like not different enough that it's like super super like prominent. I feel like for me at least.
I see. So it's not that big of a leap, but it's still a pretty drastic change then.
Mm.
So how has your experience been with your specific major in electrical engineering and computer science?
So I am almost 2 months in, so I guess that's pretty cool. Um, I don't know. It's been a pretty wild roller coaster. The classes are pretty fun. The professors are really cool, but Berkeley also is pretty prominent for grade deflation. So your like test scores and stuff get really, really bad, really, really fast. So that's also like an experience, I guess, in some ways. Um, I don't know. It's just really fascinating. I think I came into Berkeley understanding that like when you spend your time here, they're really going to teach you everything from the very, very fundamentals. So for Python programming, right? We do a whole thing called environment diagrams. If you show that to like a Google software engineer or whatever else in the world, no one will know what it is. But every Berkeley student that went through EECS or CS will know what it is. Because it literally like you give yourself a piece of like code and you're just figuring out exactly why this code works. It's like super super confusing and it makes no sense if you come into here with some programming knowledge because it's never seen before. But once you actually understand it, I have not understood it till now. Once you actually get it though, like you kind of understand programming at like a whole new level. You kind of like feel like you transcend as a human being, as a programmer. And I think like small things like that is really, really nice because you're going to get like such a more in-depth understanding of like programming or like whatever else you end up studying here. So like that makes me appreciate like EECS here all the more.
I see. And you said that you had quite a bit of homework and like the things are pretty tough. So how has it been like balancing your own kind of downtime with the academics part in Berkeley?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of similar to college, if any, to high school. If anything, I feel like my schedule has loosened up a lot. Like we're not blocked off a whole like half day to school. My schedule is pretty sporadic, and sometimes like if you have something more important, you just like skip the class and watch the recording later. So like you're a lot more flexible. You have a lot more independence with your schedule. So you seemingly have more time on your hands. There's also so much activities to do. I got kind of overwhelmed, so trying to take first semester a little bit more chill to figure out what I end up wanting to do in the future. So balancing overall hasn't been too bad. Kind of just like trying to get homework done and then leaving time to study. A lot of my friends really enjoy getting homework done. Like the first 2 days it's assigned, and the homework is for a whole week long, right? So like once you're done with that, you have like 4 or 5 days to like do other stuff with, and that's kind of nice also to have that time on your hands to do other things.
I see. And if there are students who are interested in going down this specific route that you've gone through, whether it be like the cross section of electrical engineering and computer science, or either one, what kind of advice would you give for them?
That's hard. um, I think my personal bias is try to do more stuff for electrical engineering. I say that because like in the program, 90% of EECS kids end up doing like pure CS, and that's kind of disheartening to me. I feel like electrical engineering is like hard, sure, but it's also really, really fascinating, and it's like a whole world that's like seemingly untapped, and might as well just like try it out and have some fun with it. Um, yeah, because again, I don't know if you're gonna be in the cusp between like E and CS. You're coming into here with the mentality of going CS, it's kind of like why are you here in a way. Apparently, Berkeley is making like departmental changes for that next year, but I don't really know much about it. Other advice I have is just like try to broaden your scope, try to learn everything you can. There's so many operative classes in all of EECS, from like optimization to like machine learning and artificial intelligence to robotics to optics to sensors and so much, right? So like just really try to spend time and see which classes you enjoy and try to take as many as you can, right? I know so many upperclassmen who are like, do I graduate in 3 years because I can, or should I stay an extra year? Or people who are like staying all 4 years, like I don't even want to leave after 4 years because there's even more classes I don't want to take. Those sentiments kind of just convey that like there's so much here, so like really spend the time to like broaden up your perspective and learn more, learn as much as you can.
That's cool. Sorry, little prompt on the screen. Anyways, now for high school students in general, do you have any more like general advice for them?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice piece will always be have fun. You only have your high school experience once. Coming into college, my biggest slogan to myself was work hard, play hard, and I wish I kind of like lived with that a little bit more in high school. Looking back with a lot of my high school peers, also, I think a lot of people had that same conclusion: is I spent too much time on this one assignment, or like I spent too much time on this, that, and I didn't spend enough time like enjoying myself. I didn't go to my first like high school sporting event until senior year. I think that was like a terrible regret of mine. My first homecoming was the one that I ended up like putting together, so like there's also that. So like be more involved in school events. Like that's part of like your experience. That's part of the community and whatnot in high school. Um, have fun. Academics are important, but sometimes that last point on that one assignment is not going to be worth the extra time you put into it, because there's so much more down the line. Um, also a lot of, maybe not a lot, but some, I am a firm believer that some of the your closest friends in the future will be from high school, because you, especially in Interlake IB program, you guys are working so closely together for so long that you build like really, really strong bonds. So don't be that one person who's like in the corner all by yourself, right? Really put yourself out there, build that relationship, build that cohort community, and enjoy yourself 3 or 4 years. Because once you're done with it, that's it, right?
I think you kind of touched on this, but maybe it's like more, it's like kind of a final question is if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice, what would that advice be?
Yeah. Again, it's just like have more fun in some ways. Not saying like throw away academics or anything, but like you can definitely like prioritize your time a little bit differently to enjoy high school in some ways more. On top of that, I think freshman year should be all about trying new things for the most part. I know people who came into the program knowing exactly what they want to do 20 years down the line. So they knew exactly what they were doing freshman year. But I think that's like a really small proportion of people. Most people either have some small minuscule idea or have no idea whatsoever. I came into high school knowing pretty much nothing about what I want to do. Um, so like freshman year is really good because you have more time. You're not starting IB yet. Your classes typically aren't too heavy. So now you can join a bunch of clubs, try a bunch of organizations, sports, whatever. And afterwards, you spend the year. Then in sophomore year, you can really pick and choose which ones you're passionate about and which ones you stick with, right? Uh, Freshman year, I feel like one of my shortcomings really was not trying enough things. Do I regret it a little bit? I'm not like regretful where I ended up because I did end up finding my passions either way. But I think really going through it in a more systematic approach really is try a little bit of everything in freshman year. Maybe you hate a certain something, then you don't try that one, right? But like if you are like, I don't know if I enjoy it, then there's no harm in like going to the interest meeting or something like that and see how you feel about it. I think again, freshman year is kind of like structured so you can do that, so you might as well do that, and then it makes the rest of your high school years more enjoyable in some ways, and it gives you more direction also.
Great. So it's like variety is the spice of life then, right?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. That's so poetic.
All right. Well, Eric, thanks so much for your sharing. That's all the questions that I have. If you want to add anything else, feel free to. But yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. And like I mentioned, if anyone watching ever has some like question about college or whatever, I don't know if you can like put my contact or somewhere for this. I'm happy to take questions for that in the future as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'll make sure to include that. So if anyone watching is interested in reaching out to Eric, that'll be in the description of the video. All right. So thanks so much, Eric.
No problem. Thank you.